5 Dark Secrets about the Vatican. Vatican City is an independent city-state that is just 1/8 the size of Central Park in New York City, and is the home of the Pope. However, the Vatican can also refer to the Holy See, which is the governing body of the Catholic Church. These are the 5 darkest facts about the Vatican. '5. Exorcism. With advances in the fields of psychology, neuroscience, and biology, it is hard to believe that exorcisms are still performed by the Catholic Church. However, according to former exorcist Gabriele Amorth, who apparently performed about 70,000 exorcisms in his office in the Vatican, there are about 300 exorcists worldwide and 4 working in Rome. Besides priests performing exorcisms, at least 2 modern-day popes have performed exorcisms in the Vatican. The first was performed by Pope John Paul II in March 1982, on a young woman named Francesca Fabrizi from the Umbria region of Italy. During the exorcism, she crashed to the ground and screamed. The Pope said he would say Mass for her the next day, which apparently cured her. She went on to live a normal life, getting married and having children. Pope John Paul II's second exorcism was in September 2000, when a woman with a history of possession was sitting in the front row of the Pope's weekly audience. Pope John Paul talked to her, hugged him, and then performed an exorcism. However, it did not work, and Father Amorth had to do a follow-up exorcism session that lasted 2 hours the next day. Then in May 2009, Benedict XVI performed an exorcism on 2 men who were howling during the weekly audience. Apparently, when Pope Benedict blessed the men, they flew back 9 feet back and were cured. 4. Retiring popes. For most popes, it is a job they do until they die. This is part of Catholic dogma. Retirement would be like a parent giving up his children. However, this does not mean that they are not allowed to retire. It is too rare for them to resign or retire. In fact, over the past 1,000 years there have been 123 popes, and out of all of them, only 5 have abdicated. The first to resign was Benedict IX, one of the youngest popes, who was probably about 20 years old when he first sported that amazing hat. He was also the only person to have served multiple terms as pope. He was forced out of the papacy in 1036, but returned just months later and became pope again. However, he had a problem: he wanted to get married. So he ended up selling the papacy to the man who became his successor, Pope Gregory VI, in May 1045. However, Benedict soon regretted doing so because it turned out the woman he wanted to marry wasn't interested in marrying him. He wanted to reclaim the title of pope in November 1047, but he only lasted a year before he was excommunicated. The second pope to resign was the man who bought the pope, Pope Gregory VI, who stepped down at the urging of the bishops. He denied did anything wrong but nevertheless resigned in 1046. The next pope to resign was Pope Celestine V in 1294. He decreed that if the pope wanted to resign, then he should be allowed to do so. He left a week later, after 5 months as pope. After retiring, he lived like a hermit for 2 years. Unfortunately, his predecessor was worried that Celestine might try to reclaim the papacy or oppose him, so he had him imprisoned, and Celestine died after 10 months. The next one was Pope Gregory XII in 1415. At that time, due to a schism in the Catholic Church, which began in 1378, there were 2 popes, one in Rome and one in Avignon. Gregory chose to retire so that the Pope at Avignon could be excommunicated and the Catholic Church could get a fresh start. Proponents of this theory point out that he retired after the Vatican scandal, which was the leaking of documents that showed Pope Benedict's struggle to be more transparent with the public about things like priests and sexual abuse, but interior politics thwarted his plans. The Vatican scandal showed that Benedict could not manage this effectively, so he chose to retire. 3. The Banco Ambrosiano scandal. The Vatican Bank is officially known as the Institute for Religious Works, and from 1971 to 1989, the president of the bank was Archbishop Paul Marcinkus from Cicero, Illinois. Before that, the former rugby player worked as a bodyguard for Pope Paul VI. However, he would be remembered for a scandal that broke in 1982. The scandal began with the collapse of Banco Ambrosiano, which was one of the largest private banks in Italy, with $1.4 billion in debt. Shortly afterwards, Roberto Calvi, who was the general manager of the bank and Marcinkus's friend, was found dead, hanging from a bridge in London. It was initially considered a suicide, but was later ruled to be a homicide. 5 people were tried in connection to his murder, but they were all acquitted. This brings us to Marcinkus and the Vatican Bank. It turns out that the main shareholder in the bank was the Vatican, and they had funneled $1 billion from the bank to 10 shell companies. Other rumors surrounding the scandal was that other shareholders with the bank were involved in organized crime, and some were even members of a secret Masonic lodge. When Italian investigators tried to interview Marcinkus about the scandal, he was not cooperative. He refused to leave the Vatican and even refused to answer questions, citing diplomatic immunity. Marcinkus ended up being indicted, but he never went to trial because the charges against him were dismissed. He continued to run the Vatican Bank for 7 more years. The scandal has even led to some conspiracy theories. The most famous one was used in the plot of Godfather Part III, and shows that Pope John Paul I was assassinated by the Mafia in August 1978. John Paul I was Pope for only 33 days during 1978 before he was found dead in bed. The official cause of death was a heart attack, but no autopsy was performed. According to the conspiracy theory, he was killed because he wanted to end up the relationship between the church and private bank. 2. The apostolic penitentiary. Catholic priests have some extraordinary powers when it comes to granting absolution for committing crimes. This includes forgiving people for things like murder, or mass murders, and even genocide. That's right, if you are a Catholic and you kill the family next door, you can go to a priest and ask for forgiveness and he could forgive you. Not only that, but the priest could never tell the police. However, there are 5 sins that are so grave that priests can't absolve them. For this reason, inside the Vatican, they have a secret tribunal called the Apostolic Penitentiary, which looks at cases involving these sins. The tribunal was established by Pope Alexander III in 1179, and the type of cases they examine has been a secret for most of its history. However, in 2009, the Catholic Church took a major step towards transparency, and revealed the nature of these sins. 2 of them can be committed by anyone. The first is the desecration of the Eucharist, because Catholics believe that it is the actual body and blood of Christ. The second is attempting to kill the Pope. The other 3 sins can only be committed by a priest, or those who trying to become priests. One is if a priest reveals a sin, and the person who committed the sin, that they hear in the confession. Second, they cannot have sex with someone and then offer confession to their sexual partner. Third, a man who wants to be a priest cannot be directly involved in an abortion, such as paying for the procedure. 1. The Vatican Bank and Nazi gold. According to a 1946 document from the Treasury Department, the Vatican may have both held and smuggled Nazi gold during World War II, despite being a neutral entity. The document, which was brought to the public's attention in 1997, said the Vatican Bank held 200 million francs, or about $254 million, for the Nazis. According to an excerpt quoted in the document, that money was later funneled through something called the Vatican Pipeline to Argentina and Spain, where it was given to Nazis who fled prosecution for war crimes. The Vatican Bank also apparently funneled money that was stolen from Serbs and Jews by the Ustashi, who were a Nazi puppet regime in Croatia. At the end of the war, the Yudishi started plundering from the victims of their ethnic cleansing campaigns, and then smuggled 350 million Swiss francs, which is worth about $440 million, out of Yugoslavia through the Vatican. The money was then used to support the murderous Ustash organization while they were in exile. In 2000, a lawsuit was brought against the Vatican over this issue, but the suit ultimately failed, without success.